So in this video, we're going to look at another alternative to your standard drawing paper for coloured pencil drawing and standard graphite drawing. And that alternative is watercolour paper, and watercolour paper applied to a board. There are many varieties of watercolour paper on the market, but we're specifically going to look at hot press watercolour paper, which is the smoother variety, and that is more suitable for the use of drawing. But I like to use a company called Arsh, and their paper, which is £140 in weight, which is 300 grams, and it's 100% cotton, so it's really tough, so I can do all the scratching and all the taking away of the colour as much as I like. But the great thing about it is the intensity of the final colours. It's just a really nice paper, even though it is very expensive. But you can experiment with whatever paper that you might like to use. I find by attaching the paper to the board, you create more of an object-like surface, almost like a painting surface, like a painter's canvas. And it also gives you a bit more durability. And later on you can use other products like textured fixative and final fixative that require a rigid surface. Right, let's crack on and I'll show you how I do it. Right, we start off with some golden soft gel medium, and the golden soft gel medium is going to be used as a glue to attach the watercolour paper to the board. And the board that I'm using is a sheet of pre-cut 3mm MDF, which I've already given a layer of acrylic primer, but you don't have to do that. I'm using golden soft acrylic gel because it's a very reliable medium and I know it works. And it is also acid free, so it will not cause the artwork any problems in the longer term. I would generally avoid craft PVA glues because a lot of them aren't acid free, and so you might have a few problems further down the line with the glue seeping through the paper or not actually even sticking properly. Right, so apply a nice even coat of that soft gel, making your brushworks quite random with no heavy peaks, just making sure you've covered everywhere, especially those edges. Really be thorough. Right, now onto the watercolour paper, making sure the watercolour paper is larger than the board. What you need to do is create a slight bend in the paper, right down the most central part of the paper, creating like a gully. And that needs to be the bit that makes first contact with the board. Right, we now need to use a printing brayer roller to push that medium between those two surfaces so they stick really well. So you need to push from the inside of the paper to the edge of the paper. So you're pushing that medium right to those edges and getting any trapped air out. Also, make sure you've got a clean roller, because sometimes I've been caught out and used a dirty roller and ruined the paper. This rolling process shouldn't take too long, but always be really thorough. There's nothing worse than waiting all that time at the end for it to dry and you found the edges haven't stuck down properly. Right, there we go, all done. Now on to the next stage. This time we'll be using sheets of glassine just to protect the surface of the paper for it to dry. You can get glassine from most art shops and it's generally used as some sort of protector and to stop artworks and prints coming into contact with each other. Right, we now need to put some weight down onto that board to aid with the drying and the spreading out of that medium so it's totally even. So I normally put down a couple of really heavy books and I then leave that for about 24 hours, sometimes up to 48 hours. Right, let's have a look. It should have stuck well in that time. So we take the glassine off. Yep, looks like they're totally welded together. Brilliant. Now it's time to cut those edges off. I'm using a good quality sharp Stanley knife to do this, with a fresh blade. It's always best to use a really sharp fresh blade. There's nothing worse than using a blunt one and getting really bad edges. Again, I've used a sheet of glassine underneath the face of the paper just to protect it and keep it clean. And I should also be using a cutting mat, which I'm not here. I'm getting very lazy here in my old age. Really use that edge of the board and push the blade at a slight angle, just so you get really sharp edges. Right, that's nearly done. Let's have a look at the edges. That's the reason why I prime it to start, so I've got white edges at the end, so it just looks a bit cleaner. I think that looks good. One last thing to do. Let's get some sandpaper. I just like to give the edges a very light sand, but you really need to watch out that you do not damage the paper or lift any of the edges of the paper. But it definitely makes it smoother, cleaner, and gives it a better look, I think. It's much sharper. Right, one final brush down, get rid of all those dust particles, and I think we're ready. All done. You can start drawing on it. Look, there we go. All done. Brilliant. Look how sharp it is. A really good object-like surface, almost like a canvas for the people that want to draw or do watercolour paintings. It gives you so many more options than your standard drawing papers. You can explore water-soluble pencils and paint with them, and even use solvents like Zest-It Pastel Blend with your wax and oil-based pencils. And because you've created a rigid surface, you can then explore things like textured fixative and final fixatives that require a rigid surface, and even follow on by using like golden UV varnishes, which work really well on this type of surface. Well, I do hope you found this video of some use. Please do like and subscribe, and thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care, bye!